Words can only convey so much. So it's understandable if what I say doesn't make sense to you now. But you'll know what I mean soon enough.
I've been a RWBY fan for almost 14 years now. That's older than the average RWBY fan has been alive. And in those many years, I've gone through many joys and disappointments with this franchise under Rooster Teeth. And it appears that, much to my dismay, its tenure under Viz Media looks to be more of the same. Because, well, allow me to vent for a minute. Because, what the hell are they fucking doing over there? I swear, when the ship that is Rooster Teeth sunk, they only kept the most valuable people. The Team RWBY voice actors, Carrie, and of course, most important of all, the official RWBY social media guy. RWBY's back, baby. We're right back where we were, reposting the same ass gifs and clips that everyone's seen already, the same unfunny white bread memes, and RWBY is firmly retaking a spot as the lamest, most sanitary, unmemorable series about giant weapons and anime fights in indie animation history. What a time to be alive. Meanwhile, I look over to Glitch Productions, which was started by two people directly inspired by Monty's work, having just released Gameoverse, helmed by another person, RWBY, who is also directly inspired by Monty's work, and then promoting their show by promoting their show. No fucking about with voice actors doing the most tangentially related boring nonsense, actually showing the characters, promoting the show as the characters people actually give a shit about. I have this nagging feeling, the way Glitch treats its shows, the attention they give their merch and promotion. If Glitch had, perhaps in another timeline, acquired RWBY, the work that inspired its very founders and creators, they would have treated this franchise like their golden fucking child. But Viz had more money, so they won the bid for RWBY. That's how it works around here. But okay, that's alright. That's alright. Part of growing up is accepting what cannot be changed. And it is true observing this dichotomy, this contrast between a company that gives a shit about its franchise and that understands its core appeal versus seeing one that completely misses the mark, that I realized with full clarity now, without the shadow of a doubt. At the rate things are now, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. There's zero hope left for RWBY. RWBY has been sauceless for far longer than it has held the sauce. So if anything, Viz is just staying true to the RWBY brand. Which brings me to the point of this video. I'd like to talk at some length, but not exhaustively, how we got here. And I really don't want to spend more time on this point longer than necessary, so I am trusting you, my viewer, to understand the points and conclusions I am making. After all, if you're listening, you're not someone here looking to be convinced. You're probably here to confirm what you already believe to be true, to hear echoed that pit in your stomach, that discouraging dread you suspend out of hope. Well, I could certainly record an hour-long video going into long and extensive detail about how RWBY was systematically defanged over the years, its sharp points sanded over to a fine, featureless curve. This video is more a way for me to voice a series of epiphanies I arrived at after years of frustration with this show, only further confirmed by the good people at Viz Media. As the quote goes, if I had more time, I would write a shorter letter. Well, I've had plenty of time, so that for your benefit, I may perhaps summarize these frustrations and untangle some of the questions in your mind. Why does it no longer feel the same watching this show? Why is it so fucking lame? In my personal opinion, the decline of RWBY can be summarized in the following points. Number 1, it's a show initially made for weebs, fans of otaku culture and of the creative arts, led by people who know nothing of it. 2, they can't give a shit. And 3, you can't just be deserving, you have to be worthy. Let's go through each point one by one. They're not very long, don't worry. I will also refer to the people in charge of RWBY to generally refer to either RWBY under Rooster Teeth or Viz Media. It doesn't really matter because their methods and treatment of the franchise are regrettably the same. So let's start. Point 1. It's a show initially made for weebs, fans of otaku culture and of the creative arts, led by people who know nothing of it. I've brought this up in a video before, but Monty the creator of RWBY, with all his strengths and flaws, was, yes, a human like you or me, but he was an exceptional creator. In this era of indie animation thriving the way it does, with all the advancements in 3D animation, in 3D anime, he would have thrived. This world of indie animation that he partly laid the foundations for, whose creators now were people directly inspired by his work. It was built exactly for people like him, and I think about that often. The things he could have made, living in a world where I know Monty would have had so much more impact in, but without him in it. It's like constantly looking at a hole, a void where someone used to be, and RWBY being his final work becomes sort of the meeting point of most of these feelings. Monty was the creator of RWBY, and when I say this, I don't mean he just came up with the idea. I don't mean he knew exactly what it would be either. This isn't a Monty's vision argument. I'm not trying to glaze Monty as this unquestionable paragon, not at all. But what I mean is that RWBY was Monty's creation first, before he shared it with anyone else. And if you know what creating something means, that means putting a part of yourself into it. Your preferences, the things you find cool, the works of art that came before, which inspired you. Let's not mince words here. Monty was a weeb through and through, about as unapologetic a weeb as you could ask for. He was a hardcore otaku before most people would even begin to consider it cool or even socially tolerable. And he was deeply steeped in otaku culture. He loved cosplay. He originally designed the outfits in RWBY with pockets and pouches because he knew it was a pain point for cosplayers. He based RWBY's 3D models by kit bashing MMD models together. RWBY had all those years of fandom culture, of obscure anime references ingrained into its DNA. So when Monty passed away, you take that franchise containing all of that rich DNA and you put it in the hands of people who know nothing about it. They wouldn't even know where to start looking to understand the things that inspired RWBY. I saw a recent cameo with Miles Luna talking about media he would like RWBY to cross over with. You know what he mentioned?
A RWBY Buffy the Vampire Slayer crossover. Now, I personally have actually never watched it. The first place my head went to was Teen Titans. My next thought was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Castlevania. Maybe a bit too much cursing for our kids, but still good.
Zero anime, zero video games, not a single one. No Black Rock Shooter, no God Eater, no Soul Eater, no Gachi Akuta, no Devil May Cry, no Monster Hunter, no Guilty Gear. Bro, just name one anime related thing, for God's sake. I'll take Hatsune Miku, I'll take Uma Musume, I'll take fucking Chikawa at this rate. I'll fucking take... Oh my god. Look at games like ZZZ and Wuthering Waves to name a few, and the difference is night and day. When the main developers at the helm actually care about anime, when their creative influences are the things that inspire RWBY, you can feel it. The producer of ZZZ, Zhenyu Li, was a mad video editor who, for the anniversary of ZZZ, made a music video using a remix of a rock song from his own franchise, edited to clips of his own characters aura farming to thank all the fans and crew that worked and supported the game.
Chocolate chip cookies, just in time for Thanksgiving. That's such a lot. So good.
doing that.
That's the kind of lead I want. Someone whose hyperfixation special interests is their own story and has the creative spark to make it sing. Even without the budget of a multi-million studio or game company, Monty made Dead Fantasy and Haloid in a cave with a box of scraps, and it's still more memorable than a great number of professional studio-made action scenes across anime, film, or any medium. When you have the sauce, you have it. Money and production value helps amplify any work, yes, but when you got it, and well, pardon the food metaphor here, but when you got the sauce, you can always taste it. When something doesn't have the sauce, all you can taste is its bland, unseasoned absence. So you would think Viz Media, who's worked with the biggest action franchises in anime and manga history, would get that. To actually take a good hard look at this show they paid doubtless several million in dollars for, and see that RWBY is much more than its voice actors, is much more than Rooster Teeth's parasocial celebrity culture that we thought died with it, but they can't, and they won't, because point 2, they can't give a shit. You know how I said the people in charge of RWBY wouldn't even know where to start looking to understand the things that inspired it? Well, I doubt they even give it a chance, that explicitly given the opportunity to look into these inspirations and understand them, that they would even want to. And why is that? Because they can't give a shit. Note that I said can't. I didn't say they don't give a shit, meaning that they actively don't want to care about RWBY. That may still be true, but I want to be charitable and say that they are well-intentioned enough to care about RWBY. But what I mean is they cannot truly care for its needs. They are incapable of it. They don't love the things that inspired RWBY. They're not interested in anime. It's a world completely alien to them. And that is why RWBY felt so different under them. Even if you got the best writer to work on RWBY, and they were entirely raised only on Tolkien and Martin and the greatest works of Western fantasy literature, you'd probably get a good story, but you wouldn't necessarily get a good RWBY. How would you care about something you have no knowledge about? There's nothing to even perceive is a problem, let alone solve it. So, when Viz acquired RWBY, I thought here was a company that can give a shit, that knows its shit. But no, not at all. Instead, they were content with looking at how that sinking ship called Rooster Teeth ran things and thought, yeah, good enough. I'd have vastly preferred if they just said nothing at all. Let the world forget RWBY, then surprise us when we least expect it with a banger of a return. But now, every social media post is a reminder of how very little they do know. Because at least with Rooster Teeth, I could just chalk it up to just pure ignorance, just a crew understandably reeling after the loss of a friend and lead creator, stumbling to find the pieces and never quite doing so. It's a regrettable but very understandable set of circumstances. But with Viz, it's hard not to feel like active negligence on their part. The way they view this fandom as little more than glorified RT first subscribers instead of growing a new audience, milking the nostalgia and parasocial attachment to the faces of Rooster Teeth. Every dollar they spend flying these voice actors and Carrie to a studio, to hire a camera guy to film them all day making waffles, to pay for a set for their flower arranging session, they could have spent adding actual worth to this franchise. And I don't mean volume 10, I don't mean a full story, I don't mean a manga or anything huge or committal, I'm being reasonable. I'm asking for new one-page comics of the characters. I mean sponsoring animators to make new short meme videos of the characters. I'm asking for new commissioned artwork of the characters during their birthdays or certain holidays. Not the same 10-year-old clips, new content of the characters. I'm sure they're relatively nice people, but I don't give a fuck about who voices the characters, not really? Like, yeah, Tom Kenny will always be the iconic voice of SpongeBob. But do I want to see Tom Kenny making waffles and he's not even doing the fucking voice? And Tom Kenny as SpongeBob is 100 times more iconic than Team RWBY. So if you know I don't give a shit about even that, what makes you think I'd rather see these 5 gallivanting around on their slice of life arc, while the other hundreds of the animators and artists who work on RWBY get fuck all? And you know the problem? These would be fine in a vacuum. Sure, I'll watch Bob make a cup ramen, I'll watch Aaron attend pottery class, but if that's all you're showing me, if that's all that's new with RWBY and the rest is just an IV drip of the same clips from 10 years ago, that's a fucking joke. But okay, let's back up here. When Monty made RWBY, it was just a fun passion project, and he brought on whoever was around on board for his production, regardless of qualification. I'm sure he just wanted to make a cool thing with his friends, with a company whose work with Red vs. Blue he did respect and admire. There was no way he could have foreseen the way that same company would turn out, the way RWBY would be this controversial. There's simply no way. And he obviously could not foresee his death, at least not the exact date. So when he died, it makes sense that RWBY would carry on to Miles and Carey and Krubby. By all legal means, they deserve every right to continue RWBY. And now, by that same legal metric, Viz Media, having purchased RWBY, deserves every right too. But point 3.
You can't just be deserving, you have to be worthy! But all you have ever been is a bloody migraine!
Viz should know and act better than Rooster Teeth, but they don't. I had thought, given their prior history with the RWBY manga adaptations, RWBY was in decent hands, but somehow they showed more agency and creativity with the franchise before acquiring it than after. Let me remind you again of how Glitch Production treats its franchises, how it places confidence in their characters, their stories. The merch looks like stuff you would actually buy. They look like the kind of merch you wish something had, but is actually real. Part of what pushed me to make this video was seeing this tribute to Monty in Gameoverse's pilot. I'll remind you that Gameoverse's creator, Rubber Ross, was not just inspired by Monty, he was a very close personal friend of his, and it was Monty's encouragement that drove him to continue working to make his dream project a reality.
My favorite anime is Gurren Lagann. It's the tale of persistence, perseverance, and overcoming great loss. One of the reasons this show has a special place in my heart is because a friend of mine, he was an animator, and we bonded over how incredible the show's animation was and just how powerful the message of the show, which was like always moving forward, truly was. The same friend had a way with always silencing any doubt I had about pursuing my dreams as an animator. He was so driven. If he told you that you could do something, you truly, truly believed it. Then, to all of our disbelief, he passed away due to a tragic accident. After my friend's passing, I found myself watching Gurren Lagann again. It was the story of a young man overcoming the tragic loss of his own friend and then growing into a person that he could have been proud of. I'll never forget what Gurren Lagann did for me to pull me out of that really dark place. It meant a lot to me and my friend Monty. This was hard to record. Anime's fucking awesome.
So this tribute was not only a dedication at the end of the pilot, but also 2 impact frames within a fight scene, containing Monty's signature and his famous quote, "Keep moving forward." I'll not harp on this point because it's not my intention to weaponize a very heartfelt and earnest tribute for Gameoverse, and I will hope you, my viewer, will have the presence of mind to treat it as such. I just want to use it as an example because never in a million years would the people who run RWBY, its legal guardians, ever think to put a tribute to Monty in 2 impact frames that only people looking for it will find. Yet is so ridiculously on brand for the type of person they were honoring. A fight scene animator who treated action as not just an afterthought or obligation, but as much of a storytelling medium as any other, being honored with impact frames, the perfect example of a piece of work in action scenes that are almost imperceptible but add so much to the whole. And I know Gameoverse is just a pilot, it's just one episode to judge on, but that's just it. It is just a pilot, and a pilot is not necessarily a guarantee of a series. So Gameoverse, knowing this might be their only real chance at saying something about itself, still said something about that which inspired it, and in a way that truly understood the assignment. If there was anyone I would say are worthy of continuing RWBY, it would be people like them, who don't just give a shit about the franchise, but know how to meet its needs, who know its existing audience and how to grow it, to take joy in creating something new while paying tribute to their influences. It's hard to imagine RWBY from the perspective of someone who views it as a single, unified, unchanging whole. Because from my perspective, its two halves could not be clearer. It's so hard to concisely point out all the little changes that chipped away at its own identity. The changes to its art direction, how it once looked like an actual anime in art style and aesthetic, to becoming a genericized cartoon wearing the skin of an anime, like a Fortnite skin of the original that doesn't look quite right. Its very genetics changing to fit the views and tastes of his new creators who know nothing about the entire sphere of media out there that inspired it. As an artist, these are things I would be put in a padded cell for griping over. You think I was crazy pointing them out so often, how the weapons have gone less and less elaborate, how the semblances went from flashy and visually striking to invisible and an afterthought, how the traveling by shooting your gun became less prominent, and when it does happen, it doesn't even look cool or hyperkinetic in its impact. It looks cartoonishly goofy and lacking any bite whatsoever. As someone who paid attention to these little details, who appreciates and loves the series for all those little things that made RWBY RWBY, it wasn't an evolution of art style, it was a continual erosion of all the things that made it cool, a slow death of 1,000 cuts. You know how when you have your own OCs and you imagine all the fight scenes in your head like you're watching a Sakuga compilation or a badass music video? Watching RWBY was like seeing those idealized OC fight scenes in your head come to life before your very eyes. With how they portray this show as nothing more than the most sanitized, cozy, comfy, HR-friendly version of itself. With how they want you to see these characters more as their voice actors, relatable and unremarkable, than larger-than-life heroes. It feels like the people who run RWBY now are the kind of people who have never imagined a badass music video of their OCs in their entire life. It takes the right kind of person to do RWBY well, and even then, it's not like RWBY right now is impossible to make. Everywhere I look, I see creators, animators, artists who, if I took them and put RWBY in their hands, they would know how to cook with it. They just get it. And when you get something, you just do. It's when all of your experiences, the interests that shaped you, resonates on the same wavelength, and it's like a bird to the sky, completely natural. And when you see how natural that is, and you see its current state, legally bound to the whims of an entire committee of people who don't get it, who don't know what's so cool about shooting guns to move around, who think a series that attracted so many people because of its haphazard momentum and willingness to do crazy new things and engage with its fan base at the ground level can now just recycle the same clips, the same corpo-friendly memes. It's like watching a bird in a cage. It's an old bird. It's not the best. It's worn and beat up and missing a few feathers. But you know, if that cage wasn't there, if it had just the space to move its wings and you see it fly again, you'd be wondering How did you ever tolerate keeping that bird in the corner of your house, staring at your grey paint-chipped walls for as many years as you did? Is the solution just to hand RWBY over to Glitch Productions? That'd probably help a great deal, but no. Viz has no reason to give RWBY up, and even at the Glitch, there's no guarantee of how they'd handle RWBY. There is no solution to this, and that's what I find so damnably vexing about it all. It's like knowing a perfect world exists, close enough to see its shape, to know where it goes, yet it will continually remain impossibly out of reach, and you just have to accept it and to come to terms with the fact that it is so. Because the healthy thing to do is to move on. Glitch Productions is doing the healthy thing by making exciting new things while still honoring their inspirations. Ross is doing the healthy thing by putting his own dreams first, by paying tribute to the friend who put him on that path. I myself have also realized this, that's why I'm making my own things too, instead of hanging onto RWBY for fulfillment, to expect more out of something that no longer knows itself. But it's funny, I speak only for myself here, but in my entire life, Monty's death is one of the few events that truly fundamentally changed me as a person, which is very strange because I never knew the guy, nor will I claim to know him beyond the most no-brainer observations like he was a big otaku and Rooster Teeth clearly weren't, because I related to him a lot. Like him, I'm also of Southeast Asian descent and of mixed descent like him at that, but beyond that, as a creator, I could relate to his blog posts where he internally grappled with himself, the worth of what he does, whether his animations, small and indulgent he thought they were in the grand scheme of things, were truly worth anything to anyone or to society at large. I relate to his continual struggle to be remembered for something, to create something that outlives yourself, to feel your own individuality be secondary to your deeds, to what you leave behind. And in the end, he was true to that view to a fault. He only lived for his work, even to the detriment of himself. That too is a lesson I learned, a cautionary tale, because I see the world he could have lived in, a world that would have loved his continual presence and flourished with him in it. And I know that to die young is nothing to idolize or admire. I have this eternal fascination with RWBY, the things it could be, the ways it could be treated, because it's like a never-ending puzzle. Perhaps picking at that puzzle is my way of coping with the random chance and incomprehensible nature of Monty's death. Seeing RWBY being remembered, being seen the way it is now, a pale shadow of itself that has worn the face of some unknown thing far longer than it has had the chance to grow into its true self, now becoming that mask perhaps irreversibly. But that's the thing, that may be RWBY's fate, but Monty's work, the impact he left, that will always be looked upon fondly. That spark may not be found in RWBY, but can, and always has, found its way into the hearts of others. And while that's hardly the perfect outcome, nor does it leave me fully satisfied, I think I can find comfort in that. I always used to think that RWBY was Monty's last work, and that was why I always feel this sense of injustice and frustration when I think about it. But maybe RWBY isn't Monty's last work. Maybe that work is still going, if you know where to look.